We're back to the Total Tutor Show, powered by the Insightful Players series, TotalTutor.net, BeachLifestyle.com, SimplyG.com. I have a bunch of websites to promote, but I'm really excited to welcome, first of all, the person that just has a blast interviewing these people, Jared. Jared, how are you, man? I know you're excited about this whole process of interviewing all these insightful players.
Absolutely, and the name says it all. Insightful. They provide us with just tremendous perspective on life and education and resiliency.
Exactly. So I want to welcome the program, two-time Super Bowl champion. He played for many teams, but I won't mention the one I really don't like. I'll just mention the one I do like, from the Dallas Cowboys, and he did play for the Raiders. Dave Stalls. Dave, thanks for calling.
You know what? I'm thrilled to be on the radio with you.
And Pittsburghers don't like the Cowboys. Our flagship station doesn't like the Cowboys or Raiders. So we should have introduced you as the Buccaneers then.
Well, and I tell you, I was while I lost my second Super Bowl against Pittsburgh, it was really an honor to play against the guys that were the Pittsburgh Steelers in that game. I always enjoyed playing them, even though, unfortunately, too often Pittsburgh came out the winners.
And for our listeners out there wanting to know what Insightful Player is, they're partnering with the NFL to look for great role models that empower youth. The Insightful Player series is a book as well. Go to insightfulplayer.com to learn about all these exciting programs, and I'm really excited about trying to help Chrissy Jarrett set up all these different these different ventures out there to try to get school assemblies started all over the country because of our international show. But Dave, go ahead, Jarrett.
Neil, and certainly they're inspiring. Folks like Dave are inspiring much, much more than the youth. Our feedback from the Insightful series has just been phenomenal. So they're inspiring adults, too. So, and I'm inspired after every interview we've done.
Well, absolutely, but the program is so fantastic. Coach Carew is fantastic. All right, Dave, so let's go specifically to your childhood. Did you always want to be an NFL player? Did you always want to play football?
No, not at all. I wanted to be a hockey player. I grew up in Wisconsin, and for me, it was a lonely growing up. I had a wonderful sister and a mom, but very little male influence in my life, and never met my father. And the sport of ice hockey was the tool that I ended up using to try to figure out what being a guy is all about. And of course, my interpretation of that was that the more I can put guys into the boards and help them get bloody noses was part of that venture. And so I fell in love with hockey and then moved a few years, I think it was about 12, moved down to southern Ohio, and there was no ice. And so I had to pick up football.
And that must have been definitely hard, Jarrett, especially just imagine somebody who loves a sport like hockey, and then guess what? He had to try something else. But I guess if you're used to putting punishment on people, it's perfect transition for sure. More padding, too.
It worked out really well. It really did. And that had a part of me becoming a defensive player versus offensive player. I discovered that you have to think too much as an offensive player, and it was really more comfortable not thinking and being on the defensive side.
And reacting and letting the instincts take over. I want to go back. Neil opened up with the questions about growing up. What was it like to describe for us what sports gave you, particularly when you made that move? Wisconsin's not terribly far from Ohio, but you definitely left the friends that you had behind, and you left your favorite sport. What did you use as your coping mechanism?
Wow, man, that's a deep question. I don't really know. I don't know what I did. I think that sport, both ice hockey and then later football, just gave me this opportunity to be around other guys and try to figure out, what is this guy thing all about? And I would say that prior to moving to Ohio, I didn't really have many friends, and I didn't really know how to make friends or what that looked like. And it was not until I got to Ohio that I actually made really good friends with a handful of non-football players. And so I thought, and yet it was hockey and football that just allowed me to be around guys and try different ways of making friends. And eventually it worked, but it took quite a while.
It took quite a while, and it's a situation where you're getting to meet new people and different things. Your mom was very important in this process, wasn't it? Especially the transition.
Yeah, she was. She was very important, as was my sister. And yet, there were so many things that the females in my life didn't quite understand how to help me. For example, in fighting, as you get older and as you become a bigger guy, people are going to try to test you. And they were always trying to test me. And my instruction from my mother was never fight. Under any circumstances do you fight. And I'll be very disappointed in you if you do. And so I never fought, ever. And
wow.
You can imagine what that means. When you never fight, then you become known as a sissy. And that was extremely frustrating, very hurtful at times. And I certainly learned later that a father or a guy in your life might have a different approach to that. It might be something more along the lines of, well, yes, if you start a fight, you and I got a problem. But here's what you do if you can't avoid a fight. Here's how you defend yourself. Here's what you do. And that perspective was just missing from my life, unfortunately.
Well, absolutely, and it's something that we see in a lot of times is that father figures is a key component, and you have to. Other people end up being the role model in certain ways, Jarrett, and we've heard of those stories with our insightful players so far, haven't we?
Absolutely, and this has been kind of a common thread that we've seen where even if there is a mother and a father, that there's many times an absentee parent in these relationships. And again, we started our show years ago with all about resiliency and how we build that into our youth. And Dave, you in the sports world, you can have tremendous success, but there's always going to be failure. On the defensive line, you're going to let someone pass you. You're not going to make that tackle. Where did you come to that place where you were able to embrace the success, but also challenge against even the smallest failures that might have been there? You mentioned about walking away from a fight and how difficult that was. Again, what is it that drove you to make those positive steps?
Wow. You guys ask deep questions.
We're both teachers. That's why, Dave. We're both former teachers.
Yeah, I tell you what. There's probably a couple of things that spring to mind for me. One is I discovered over time, as I was just getting older and maybe a little more wise, or maybe a little gaining a little bit of experience, is that one of the things that drove me was just this relentless desire to be acceptable to myself, to really really achieve at a level that would say, you know what, dude, you're not only okay, but you're pretty good. I think what's unfortunately, about some of that was that it became a constant desire to be okay and to accept myself for who I am. And that insecurity too often drove this relentless desire and need for achievement. And unfortunately, along the way, I met a lot of other professional athletes even that were driven a great deal by their insecurity and their constant need to be better than where they are. When you get into higher and higher levels of sport, from high school into college and then into pros, there is always somebody better than you.
Yes,
always. No matter what you achieve, there's always somebody better. And so, and I tell you, one of the situations where I noticed that the most clearly was in my first year as a rookie with the Dallas Cowboys. And we went that year and played against the Broncos in the Super Bowl in New Orleans. We won the Super Bowl. We're in the locker room, and I'm taking off my shoulder pads and equipment, and a reporter came up and said, Can you repeat the Super Bowl victory again next year? And I just looked at this reporter, and I thought, I haven't even gotten a shower yet as a world champion, and you're asking me, can I do it again? It was so fascinating, this constant drive for more. And I think to some degree it's very natural for anybody growing up, say maybe in our culture, that there's always something better, there's always something to achieve towards. And yet, unfortunately, can you at any point in your life just go, wow, today was magnificent, what I just achieved was magnificent, and I'm going to really sit back and say, today you were not only good enough, but you were really good.
You were the best, and that is so telling about within our culture that when we reach the peak, there are so many times people out there that want more, and sometimes we talk about on this show, and that is embracing the moment. When we provide our advice for parents, we talk about with all the challenges that we face with our children, finding that time to embrace the moment, where we, yes, and now I'm going to lighten it up a little bit here. I know Neil that sometimes has this timeline that he wants to follow, but you've mentioned the Broncos, you've mentioned the Cowboys. Now I'm going to lighten it up. The best quarterback that you played against and the best that you've seen.
Wow.
Being in Denver right now, we have a lot of listeners. I'm sure that they're going to expect a certain answer, but I want to know from you, Dave. Who do you think? Because I know you played with some great ones and you played against some great ones.
Yeah, I don't think there's any question that Peyton Manning is in extremely rarefied air. I mean, he is absolutely one of the best ever. Is he the best ever? I have no idea. But and only time will tell. I think certainly until he wins more than one Super Bowl, he's not gonna get to the absolute top, because in the end, that's what it's all about. And all of the stats and everything that he is recognized for, certainly to some degree are important to him, but I think he would agree, unless you have a ring or in more than one ring, then you can't necessarily count yourself as one of the top ever. For me, no question, the absolute honor that I had playing with Roger Staubach was just absolutely amazing. And part of that had to do, I think, and it's similar to what I've heard, certainly, about Peyton Manning, is that Roger Staubach was just an amazing man, just a fantastic individual in so many ways. He certainly proved that in his post-football life, too, in the success he has had in building his own company, and just how he treats people and how he walks in the world. I think he's just absolutely one of the best. But certainly playing against somebody like Terry Bradshaw, who is very, very different than a Roger Staubach or a Peyton Manning, and yet had an amazing career. And it was an honor to play against him and try to throw him on his head.
So, and Dave,
right, and couldn't have asked for three better answers right there. Thanks, Dave.
And I love, Jared, how he jumps away from our insightful story and goes into a sports question. But Dave, it's again, I feel so blessed, and I'm going to tell people this right now, to have had the opportunity to interview NBA legends this week, NFL stars, all in 1 week, and having conversations with people that I never thought I'd have the opportunity, and to really kind of go inside and deep into their soul and learn about it. So when we get back, I'm going to try to take Jarrett back into, now you're a successful high school football player. You're looking at colleges. How is your family relationship going, and then how we got our big break, and some of the great sports that Jarrett wants to talk about. You're listening to Total Tutor Show, powered by the Insightful Player Series. Again, we're with Dave Stahls, two-time Super Bowl champion of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Just kidding you. Dallas Cowboys. He played for the Raiders. And we'll be back in just a moment. We're back to the Total Tutor Show, powered by the Insightful Players Series. You can go to insightfulplayer.com for information, and my website's totaltutor.net, BeachLifestyle.com, simplyg.com, and Twitter, Total Tutor. And I'm with Dave Stahls, two-time Super Bowl champion. His stories are just fantastic, and I would love to get into so much of the sport. So let's just jump right specifically. You said you never knew you'd be an NFL player. When you were in high school, did you know this is it? Hey, I'm going to end up playing in the NFL. I'm that good, or is it at this point you're just hoping?
Not at all. Not at all. I went to high school in Hamilton, Ohio, which is just north of Cincinnati, and football was a way of life there. And so I was a very, very average player. I had some good coaching in trying to find a college that would even potentially offer me a little bit of money to go to school. And I wanted to look at colleges in states that really sounded cool, like Vermont and Maine and Montana and Colorado. And I found in a college book, University of Northern Colorado, sent them some film along with other schools I sent it to. They were the only ones that replied. They offered me a partial scholarship, and I ended up moving to Greeley, Colorado, which one of the best decisions of my life, and I've been a Colorado resident since. And it was a wonderful experience, but it was a Division II school, and yet I got taught by a great coach. His name was Frank Bauer, an amazing defensive line coach that taught me the sport and how to really be a defensive lineman. It was a fantastic experience, and I loved the small college.
Interesting. It's amazing to think, again, a Division II player, Jarrett, ends up in the NFL.
And for a number of years, and going to the championship game multiple times. And again, we've looked at this series so much, and so many times we look at our athletes and we think it's all just natural ability, and yet what we've learned on this show each week is that it matters. The practice, how you play it, instruction, teaching, perseverance, it matters. It isn't all natural talent.
You know what? I couldn't agree with you more. There are so many players, both in high school, in college, and in the pros, who had such much better just natural talents and skills and strength than I did. And I would say one of the only reasons I ever had success is because I learned from people who taught me that discipline and working harder than anybody else to learn the specific techniques and then never quit. Never quit. Have a motor that's running at high octane every moment in practice. When you're preparing for practice, when you're leaving, you are just at a really high engine level all the time, and you never quit, and you pay attention to the details, and you learn. That's the only reason that I made it into the NFL and then lasted and had a good career in the NFL.
And Dave, you never thought you were going to play in the NFL. Even when you were in Division II school, you were happy to be playing college football. So you really made academics another part of your life, an important part of your life. And
no question. Yep.
So tell us specifically that major. That's such an interesting story in itself. What you majored in college and all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, what I found was that I didn't know what I wanted to major in, and I just found that as I started taking classes, I really started enjoying those classes that were in the science building, and especially around zoology and animals. I always knew I loved animals and being around them, and then I discovered there's actually a major called zoology that's about studying animals, and so I just fell into that. The biggest challenge was that studying zoology and chemistry, they often had afternoon labs, and so that was in conflict often with the afternoon practices in spring and in fall. So I ended up I didn't graduate in 4 years. I had to come back after the Super Bowl, actually, and finish my last quarter to pick up some of those labs, but it was well worth it. I ended up going on and getting experience at San Diego SeaWorld and working on a master's in shark behavior research. And I've got 2 publications in shark behavior research, and if you both would go look them up, then you'll maybe be 4 people in the entire universe that have read them. But you know what? It was beautiful. It was wonderful. I went into veterinary school after that and discovered for family reasons I needed to step away from that. So yeah, I loved the intellectual challenge. And to some degree, my intellectual pursuits were to prove to myself and to others that I did not fit the stereotype of being a dumb jock.
And that's very interesting. Jarrett, that's a surprising thing about Dave, isn't it?
After the conversation we've had, I'm not surprised by it at all because, again, we go back to the strong words that he has used about discipline, instruction, letting that engine keep going. Those same attributes carry right over into the intellectual world where, again, so many times we see people as gifted and we ignore the hard work that they put in to get where they are. So, Neil, I'm not surprised at all, but boy, am I thrilled to hear Dave speak so passionately about his education as much as he did his athletic the athletic achievements that he made. That is what I'm most happy about.
So that was a great compliment. So Dave, here we go. We continue in the story. So then you find out you have a possibility to make the NFL. So what did you do? Were you being highly touted to play in the NFL, or what was going on there? Especially being in Division II school.
No, I definitely would say I was being highly touted. There were scouts that came around, occasionally and said that, there might be interest in me being drafted. I would, at that point, I think I would have only been the second or third person drafted in the school history. And so I didn't take it too seriously. It certainly was intriguing, but my focus was on finishing my degree and trying to get into graduate school. And when I did get drafted, it was an amazing honor, and it was financially a windfall because I was signed eventually to a contract, and my signing bonus was a whopping $5,000. And I knew at that time if I could I wanted certainly to make the team, but I knew that if I just didn't quit, I could keep that $5,000, and that $5,000 would pay for all of my grad school, and I would just be tickled pink. And it turned out that I actually did make the team, and of course we went on to win the Super Bowl that year, and 9 seasons later was the end of the career for me. So it was interesting time, but no, I was not a highly touted player.
Go ahead, Jarrett.
I was just thinking here, was that 1977?
It was, yes. And just to give you an indication of the timing of that, one of the young people that I was talking with a few months ago, I mentioned to his mentor that I had retired in 1985 and I played in the 1977 Super Bowl. He was asking me questions about it. He was a football player, and his 8-year-old little brother, his mentee, looked up at me and he said, "You mean the 1900s?" Oh,
Dave, man, that's got to be that's got to be hurting in so many ways. So you had a successful NFL career. Again, not many people could say they played so many years. You have 2 Super Bowl rings, and hey, anytime you could flash those Super Bowl rings, hey, that's worth a free drink sometimes. But let's go into specifically your foundation and what you just started up, and you want to talk about that.
Well, I tell you, I tried a number of different careers and a number of different industries, and I learned a lot from each of them. But what I found along the way is that being with really at-risk young people, especially older young people, high school age in their 20s, was really where it was at for me. I ended up founding a gang youth center in downtown Denver back in the 90s, did that for about 9 years, merged it with another organization. The last about 8 years, I was the head of Big Brothers Big Sisters for Colorado. But most recently, I've stepped back to the street onto a pretty violent street with a lot of drugs here in the Denver, Aurora area. And we've created this nighttime youth center, a fraternity in the making, specifically for young men, 14 to about 25. What's amazing is the young people that have been coming, 90% of our young men are refugees from many, many different countries. Our place is a United Nations of different languages. They speak Nepali. They speak different dialects within Burma. They speak a number of different languages within East, Central, and West Africa. So it is an amazing adventure to continue to evolve this place. We opened on April 1st, and we have anywhere from 20 to 40 young men at night that come and are very active in our place. We've got a ping pong room. We've got a gym, an exercise and boxing room. We've got a computer lab, a music studio, a library, a prayerful meditative room, and a kitchen because we serve food each night. And yet all wrapped around that is us getting to know each other, which is difficult with the different languages. But it's such an amazing adventure.
So, Dave, even the name alone, the fraternity, is promoting, a brotherhood, a family.
Brotherhood, exactly.
How important is that connection for the adults to the young adults, the older adults, the experienced, the seasoned ones, and then how important is that to just connect to those youth on their level? And get them to understand what you have talked about on the show about never quitting, even life is really giving them some bad breaks, and the importance of discipline and the intellectual challenge. Well, what can they expect when they come off the street and into this home, this brotherhood?
It really is something. And the name of the place is Street Fraternity. And so literally it says in its name, we are geared towards the street and those young men that are in this violent area. And fraternity, brotherhood, is a key part of it. You're so right. And the brotherhood just comes out in so many different ways. We had our first fight this week that occurred on site, and we've created just in the last month this thing that we call the Brotherhood Circle. And at any time, anybody there can, at any time, for any reason, call a circle. And everybody agrees to go into the prayerful meditative room, sit on the floor, and only the person who has the big talking stick, which is a kind of a 5 to 6 foot tall keto pole, and you can only speak when you have that pole. And we started sharing, and in the midst of this sharing after this fight, it was just so beautiful to see the evolution of dialogue that led to an apology from the three guys who got in the fight because of somebody saying a racist remark. And it was beautiful to see them intellectually just kind of figure out where are they at with that, and could they get to the point where they apologized. And other times, like last night, I'm sitting with one of our young people just working on a vocabulary list, and he had words like garish and priority and whiff, and about 4 or 5 other words that I'm thinking, how in the heck do I help him figure out what those words are?
Right, exactly.
Especially garish. Garish. How do you do garish? What? Anyway, it was just beautiful. It was a lot of fun, and yet to simply sit for a time and listen and laugh and help this young man work through what some of these words might be and what they might look like in a picture, because that was part of the assignment. It was just such an honor to sit and just be with this young man. This particular young man speaks Nepali and does not speak English very well. And so it was beautiful. It was incredible.
Well, Dave, again, always we talk about being how important it is to give back with your success, and you definitely have given back. But what does it mean to be an insightful player? Because, again, what we've learned from all these players so far I've interviewed, they have such tremendous stories. But when Chrissy contacted you and you talked to her and stuff like that, what does it mean for you to be an insightful player?
It's I think rare to be acknowledged for the kind of the I the non-popular activity that one might work towards. It's certainly football is something where you see how important entertainment is to our culture. And if you're an entertainer, you have a great upside potential for getting a lot of attention. When you do something that is actually important, that has meaning, I think to all of us, to our communities, to individuals, as well as just our whole culture. You need to be motivated by something that is a little less ego-driven. And so it is a little different. It is very different. And there are a number of athletes, I think, out there that, for financial reasons, maybe hesitate to consider stepping into this, less entertaining set of fields. And that's unfortunate, because the just the personal satisfaction, as well as the knowledge that you're actually truly making a difference in the world, is an amazing reward in itself, versus maybe always having people on your Twitter account.
There we go with that Twitter thing again. Neil, I am going to have to join the Twitter world here. I know I'm missing something.
You're going to have to.
I have not. I have no idea how to do Twitter. I have no idea. I don't think I'm going to go that direction.
Well, Dave, it's something that, like I said, we're with not talking about Twitter, but just being part of the Insightful Players series and getting to talk to athletes like yourself. And just when I started this show, before even meeting Chrissy Carew, I said I want to bring athletes on the program that have given back to the community, and to talk to them about that, and especially when they work with kids. And it's tremendous that we got the opportunity to talk to you. But where can we find information on you, Dave, and learn more about your foundation and all the other stuff?
We have a very, very basic website. We don't have any pictures yet. We just updated it yesterday, and so it is current as far as information, but you will notice it's not an exciting website. It's basically just a bunch of text. And that part of it is our strategy, is we don't want to put money and resources into things like our website. Maybe eventually we will, but right now you can go to streetfraternity.org, and you can check out our just what we're doing and all of our contact information. And if anybody would like to make a donation, we'd be honored and thrilled. And it's all on our website at streetfraternity.org.
You have a lot of stories definitely to talk about, and I'd like to bring you back on the show just to talk about the foundation alone, so you can really highlight all the key things that you're trying to do and how we can help you. And it's good that you're part of this show, and I really enjoyed the conversation. So thanks for calling, Dave. And Jarrett, another great guest. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And again, the folks that have been on this show are part of our own brotherhood, and that's what I think that we have established with all the wonderful people. And having these athletes take the risk to not be defined by what they did on the basketball court, the football field, the baseball field, reaching beyond what maybe the expectations were.
All right.
I tell you what, it's been an honor to be on with both of you. Thank you, and thank you so much for what you're doing, just on behalf of all of our communities.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, Dave. Take care. All right.
Take care.
Bye-bye. You're listening to Total Tutor Show. We'll be back in just a moment.